morning, everyone. My name is Muriel and I'm part of Living Rock Church. I wanted to spend just a few moments this morning talking about time. I realised how many expressions we use concerning time. We say, take your time, have a good time, don't waste your time, use your time wisely, can you spare the time? And then there's a children's favourite which they say, this is the best time ever, and so on and so on. There are many ways in which we use the word time, but it's taken on a different perspective over the last 2 months, I believe. For many people, they've got no time to spare at all. For many others, they've got far too much time. For some people, they're being asked to use their time completely differently. And for many people, this has been a very sad time. So I'm just going to read 1 or 2 Bible verses which hopefully give us a completely different perspective on time. I'm going to start in John chapter 1, the first 2 verses, where John says, "In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God. The Word was God. He was with God in the beginning." So Jesus, the Word of God, was at the beginning of time. We often sing he's our Alpha and Omega, and we know he is our beginning and end. Jesus, the beginning of time. And then I went to a couple of verses in Psalm 31, verses 14 and 15. David was having a lot of problems, which he sadly often did. And he says at a certain point, "But I trust in you, Lord. I say, you are my God. My times are in your hands." And we can all say that. Our times are in his hands. And then I went to the book of Esther, where in chapter 4, verse 14, we read about Esther, she was a Jewish girl taken into service to King Xerxes and became his favourite. And eventually he made her queen. He didn't know she was a Jewish girl. She was constantly in communication with her cousin Mordecai, and when Mordecai found out that there was a plot to annihilate the whole Jewish population, he went to Esther and he said that she should intercede with the king on behalf of the people. He said, "And who knows but that you have come to royal position for such a time as this?" I think there will be some people listening who will find that they've been put in positions that they weren't usually in, and it has been for such a time as this. I think people will understand that for them, the position they've been put in is right at this time. And of course, there are many, many mentions of time in the Bible, over 600 actually, and Ecclesiastes uses up quite a few of those times. I'm going to read from chapter 3, verses 1 to 8, which I know many of you will be familiar with, where it says, "There's a time for everything. A time for everything and a season for everything under heaven. There's a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love, a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace." That probably covers about everything you can use your time for. But I want to finish with verse 11 of this chapter, when it reads that He, that's God, He has made everything beautiful in its time, and He's also set eternity in the hearts of men. We have an eternal perspective on time. You know, we often say we're having the time of our life, but for all of us, the time of our life is now. The time is now. Our times are in His hands. He knows the end from the beginning, and we have an eternal perspective. And I wonder if we could ask for anything more. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for joining us today. Search for us online and get information about upcoming events and more great teaching.